those who have joined us on time. Welcome all of you to the Vegetable Seminar on Consumer and Food Environment Research and
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're joining us from. If you're here for the webinar on gender transformative STIBs, you're in the right place. So we'll just give it another 30 seconds before we begin. But for those who are here, welcome. We'll begin in another 30 seconds to 1 minute. Right. I guess we'll begin as more of our colleagues and partners join in. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and good morning and good evening from wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to this webinar. I will be your moderator today. My name is Nathan Rono, and I am the Communications Officer for the CGIAR Gender Equality and Inclusion Accelerator. Maybe as we begin in the chat, I'm sure you're pretty much introducing yourself in the chat, but as you introduce yourself, could you let us know whether you are a development practitioner, or maybe you're a researcher, or you're a policymaker, or maybe you're a donor, or maybe you are in academia. Please let us know from which field you're joining us from. And as you do that, please do also let us know if you've done any work related to STIBs. Have you done any work related to STIBs in the chat? So please let's interact in the chat as we begin this webinar. So as you know, since 2020, Ethiopia's vegetable sector has been a testing ground for integrated approaches that link productivity, inclusion, nutrition, and sustainability. The World Vegetable Center and SNV have worked to strengthen women's and youth participation in the vegetable value chains, combining regenerative agriculture, market linkages, and capacity building to improve incomes, food security, and environmental health. So building on this, there is a CGIAR program that was called HAPLUS that partnered with World Vegetable Center and SNV and Green Agro Solutions to embed gender transformative socio-technical innovation bundles. So this were piloted in the Oromia region of Ethiopia. And today we are here to share the evidence, reflect on what worked and why, and maybe have some discussions on what this means for future research and for scaling. So welcome to this webinar. I hope you're excited to learn as I am. Let's keep introducing ourselves in the chat. But for now, we'll hear some brief opening remarks from Eileen, but maybe before that, let me let you know what's in store for you, what's cooking in the kitchen. So we'll hear some opening remarks from Dr. Eileen Chanji, who I'll introduce shortly. Then we'll hear from Dr. Desalen on the process of co-designing learning labs, of course, sharing experiences from Ethiopia. And then we'll listen to some results on adoption and some lessons from Cosmas Lutomi, and later on we'll do some reflection on scaling. And don't be in a rush because we have set aside some time for Q&A. So first off, we'll hear from Dr. Eileen Chanji. Dr. Eileen is a passionate advocate for equity in agriculture and food systems across Africa. As a social inclusion expert with Alliance of Diversity and CGIAR. She leads transformative work through the PABRA program, driving change in over 30 countries. So welcome, Dr. Eileen, for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I'm happy to be here. So morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I mean, a lot of us are involved somehow in agriculture. So it's either we're in agriculture, our parents, are farmers, or we are working in agriculture, or we're actually consuming products that are coming from agriculture. Now, one of the issues we've been having is that agriculture, focuses a lot more on technology. So it's sort of like the technology first mindset, ignoring the social, which really is the catalyst of all things. So we assume that, if we give farmers, sort of like high yielding or climate resilient seeds, or if we give them a solar pump, and then definitely prosperity is going to follow. So you're going to have like all livelihoods and everything would be fine. But the truth is that technology alone is not a magic bullet. It can actually just increase more the unequal systems that we have. So there's a need to actually look at the social so that women especially and the marginalized, are not further left behind. And that's how we came up with this idea of the socio-technical innovation bundles, which we've now even moved to, gender-transformative socio-technical innovation bundles, where we are not only delivering a tool, but we're actually bundling multiple innovations. So we have the technology innovations, technical innovations, as well as social innovations, political and institutional innovations, all in a bid to address the climate risks that we're facing, reduce gender inequality that already exists, and make sure that farmers are able to access markets so everyone, increase food security, as well as reduce malnutrition. Next slide. So now we can back the questions of what are, socio-technical innovation bundles. So just to give you an example of what this is. So when we talk about the technological innovations, they're actually agricultural practice, techniques, or tangible tools and technologies, that you apply on a farm. So we're looking at improved seeds, irrigation systems, mechanization. When we talk about technical, it's more knowledge-based, capacity building, skill training. When we talk about social innovations, we're looking at how do you facilitate learning? How do you change social behaviors to be able to influence adoption then of the technological and the technical processes. Next slide. So I've explained a little bit why we are bringing in the social into the technology and the technical. But also then I want to talk a little bit about the gender transformative part of it, because, bundling these different innovations is important. But also then we have to look at what do we want to do with that? So at what level do we want to create change? Of course, we all know when we talk about gender blind, you're not really thinking about gender when you're doing your work sensitive. You're aware that the gender issues, the disparities, but you're not addressing them. And then we have being responsive. So responsive, acknowledging that actually men and women or, different social groups have different needs. And so you're designing activities to be able to meet those needs, but then you're not changing the social dynamics. You're not shifting the norms. So there you're being responsive and being a lot more accommodating. While now we're moving more towards gender transformative. So we're making sure these social innovations, that are part of the technical and technological bundling is actually challenging the social norms that exist in the different agri-food systems that we work in. We're looking at power dynamics. We're looking at what are the root causes that we really want to change. So what we're doing is bringing men, women, different other groups to work together, but really balancing the power dynamics in the household. And we're building all of these within the gender frameworks that a lot of us in the CGI, and I'm sure also out of the CGUs, which is the reach, benefit, empower, and transform approach. So we're moving from just reaching farmers, where we're pulling them together in these learning labs, making sure they're benefiting with the trainings and the skills that are being embedded, but also getting them to a point where we're building the agency where they can make, strategic decisions, but also then shifting those social norms and working with the different institutions, sort of like the enabling environment to make it, more positive and palatable for these innovations to be adopted. So this is just an idea of, what gender transformative socio-technical innovation bundles are. So I'm going to pass it back to Nathan, and then, my other colleagues would expatiate a little bit more on this. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Eileen. You've said that we must move from just reaching women farmers to ensuring that they benefit, that they're empowered, and that we're also transforming, changing norms and addressing these root causes of gender inequalities. Thank you, Dr. Eileen. So up next, we're going to hear this or see these learning labs in practice from Ethiopia. And for this, we'll hear from Dr. Desalem Ketema, who's an experienced academic researcher and institutional leader with more than 20 years of progressive experience in university teaching, postgraduate supervision, agricultural innovation research, and higher education leadership. Dr. Desalem served in senior roles including university president, college dean, department head, postdoctoral scientist, and is currently the country representative for the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. Welcome, Dr. Desalem.
Thank you, Nathan. Just a minute to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. That's
sorry,
okay?
Dr. Desalem. Just put it in presentation mode and then proceed.
What about now?
I think it's still loading up. It's not in presentation mode.
Okay. What about now?
Not yet. Just proceed. Maybe it will come as you continue.
Okay. So I will proceed with how the co-design process went in Walmera and Ejere, and how evidence was generated into learning labs in practice. These are the locations where the learning labs are located. Ejere and Walmera in Oromia region of Ethiopia, where we have conducted this socio-technical innovation bundles together with our partner. The first thing we did was designing or developing the evidence map with the consultation workshop with our stakeholders. That guide takes us to where we want. The first was, the situation analysis, where we identify the pros and cons of the vegetable sector, and followed by stakeholder engagement and identification. We had also co-designing and bundling innovations, and piloting of implementations, piloting and implementations. So these are the four stages, and we have also another 3 steps or stages, followed by this piloting and implementation. The first, the baseline survey and monitoring and evaluation and scaling are also other steps we followed to design the STIBs. So the evidence maps is developed to understand the effects of STIBs on women's empowerment and resilience, especially in the vegetable sector. The situation analysis help us to design those innovations. We had also a multiple discussion with World Veg Vegetable Center and SNV to identify the gaps of their intervention, and to map possible opportunities and challenges for integrating gender responsive bundle. With diverse stakeholders, we had a very successful workshop back in 2023. So in that workshop, we had also, we prioritizing the different bundles proposed by the different groups to align with the Veggies for People and Planet project. And generally, what does gender transformative STIBs looks like is for empowerment of women and resilience of women and men smallholder farmers. For example, we need to have engaging men, seed as a technology, increase women's participation, training. This can be considered as bundles to empower women and smallholder farmers. But actually, it has to be context specific to countries and different needs of the clients. So, for example, the first bundle could be the same as it is indicated here, but the other bundles might be different based on the context we have or the country or the client we want to address. For example, here in the bundle 2, you can see that the finance and credits is not here. Rather, it might be a digital solution that will be bundled together with the other technologies. And the other bundle 3 bundle for us, you can see, might be different based on the different contexts and clients' needs. So this is an overview of what gender transformative STIBs looks like. And be it in mind that external drivers also can affect, like climate, gender norms, and population can affect also those STIBs. So what we did, as I said, is we developed a research protocol for integrating the socio-technical innovation bundling together with our partner, World Veg Center and SNV, to use these innovations to practically apply to the intervention areas. And as I said, we have developed also a guide on the process and documenting of our guiding processes and partnership for co-designing and socio-technical innovation bundles. If you want to read more also, you can also scan the QR and have a look for your further reading as well. So initially, these are on the left side, as you can see, the World Veg through this project used seed system as an innovation, vegetable business network as an approach, and regenerative agriculture in general. So as Alliance, we identified the gaps, like we need to have digital solutions, especially for input marketing, output marketing, and climate advisory. And we also have a capacity building, for example, gender responsive training, nutrition sensitive training, and other kind of trainings to superimpose on the project as a social intervention as well. Usually women farmers, they were producing vegetables, and they brought to market, and they bought, for example, sugary foods for their kids, and they were not aware of for the nutrition sensitivity aspect. But now they were benefited from this intervention as well. So the other intervention we had is farmers' knowledge and resource were integrated, so that the gender transformative STIBs can have a full scale impact on the vegetable producers. And digital solutions through Lersha platform. We have trained also 980 vegetable producing farmers, among which 60% were women, registered on the Lersha platform, which is a digital platform to facilitate market input and output market as well. And qualified Lersha agents were trained to facilitate this platform as well. The gender responsive and nutrition sensitive TOT training were conducted. Over 50 participants were also trained. And we had also gender responsible training refreshers courses in the Kabbalists. And finally, we develop training manuals in local language like Afan Oromo and English before we proceed to the cascading of training down to the participants, or what you call this, the vegetable network members. And finally, the gender responsive and nutrition sensitive cascading training were conducted across the 2 woredas, where we had successfully cascaded the training and practically apply what they have got from the training aspects as well. So generally, we had also stakeholder consultation and reflective workshop in Kenya, for example, the STIBs work in Africa and Asia. We had different scaling workshop with partners in Kenya and Ethiopia as well. Based on that scaling workshop, we also tried to develop scaling roadmaps for each woreda or county, and data collection to understand the impacts in which leukemia is going to present were conducted as well as part of this STIBs intervention in Ethiopia and Kenya as well. So that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Nathan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Desalegn, for in fact taking exact amount of minutes that we had allocated for you. So thumbs up to you. And of course, moving on swiftly, as you maybe stop sharing your screen, and maybe Lutome, you can share your screen as I introduce you. So up next, we're going to hear some evidence and some early results. What do the results from the field show us? And for this, we have Cosmas Lutomia, who is a senior research associate at the Alliance of Bioversity and CIAT. Lutomia works as a socio-economic researcher, agricultural economist, and data analyst on agri-food systems research in Eastern and Southern Africa. His focus now is on how innovations and institutions shape who benefits and who is left out, and what that means for productivity, livelihoods, and equity. Welcome, Cosmas Lutomia. Over to you.
Thank you, Nathan, for your introduction. Hope I'm audible enough. Can you just confirm that you can hear me, Nathan?
Yes, Lutomia, I can hear you and I can see your slides clearly.
Okay, so I'm going to present this segment. I'm going to present the outcomes we have had from our work in the learning labs in Ethiopia, as explained by Desalegn. I'm going to focus on the adoption and empowerment, resilience, and food security and nutrition outcomes. These are just other results that you are getting from our piloting of STIBs in Wenara and Nigeria. So before I delve into that, just to give an overview of what you are doing before we collect the data, we developed the Women Climate Change Resilience Index, the WCCRI, which tries to operationalize a framework developed by the CG, the framework on measuring and tracking climate resilience for women agri-food systems by Marine Metal. So this framework first identified the context in which you want to study or improve resilient climate resilience, and these are the two woredas that we intervened. And then who are we targeting? We are targeting women, and these are agri-food systems. And then we are particularly concerned about resilience to climate change or shocks. And then the fourth aspect of this framework is through what mechanisms are women being resilient. So we focus on the ability to anticipate, absorb, adapt, and transform when they are exposed to the shocks, and how sensitive they are to the shocks. And then what for? Resilience for what? Then we are focusing on those key outcomes, the empowerment and also food security and nutrition. So based on this, we developed this tool and we collected data. Each of the 4 capacities, that's anticipative, absorptive, adaptive, and transformative, we had a series of indicators that we used to measure them. And then we generated an index, and then together we constructed a composite score for the overall resilience. So we intervened, we collected data sometime into implementation of the Veggies for Planet project, as explained by Desalegn. And we collected this data from 1,577 farmers, and we had 834 women and 743 men from the same households. Remember, these this tool, we combined climate modules, we embedded them into the Pro AI. So these were 90% of these households that we visited were dual households. And then we checked for contamination, possible contamination, the control group being exposed to treatment, and then we filtered them out, and then we went with a sample of 1,443 people. And then just to make a note that when you are collecting this data, we had some serious security problems in the two waredas, so we could not access the control groups. So we had to construct a new control group so that we can just compare the changes in areas that were not affected by the security situation. So the control group that we have is not the original control group at the beginning of the project. So we collected data from 17 KBLs in Welmere, 10 in Welmere, and 7 in Nigeria. And then we matched these households. And then out of these, the shock, the most common shock that farmers were exposed to was crop pests and diseases. So out of 1,577, 957 farmers, individuals within household reported at least being exposed to crop pests and diseases. And we matched the control to the treated and arrived at a sample of 557, in which some of the results I'm going to show is going to be based on. So what is this index? So the WCCRI measured, we collected this data as mentioned before from both female and male members within households, because it was accompanying the Pro AI. So we talked to them separately about their resilience. And then for the anticipative capacity, we focused on their exposure to information on climate, their preparedness behavior before they experience these shocks, and their confidence in implementing these adopting given behaviors in response to the anticipated shocks. Therefore, absorptive capacity, we looked at how they were coping when they were exposed to the shock, and immediately after being exposed, what they did to come back to their former selves, and also the confidence and the self-efficacy and perceived effectiveness of what they were doing. We also focused on the social and organizational support they received when exposed to shocks. And then for adaptive capacity, we were now, here is where technologies were so relevant, asking what they adopted in readiness or prior to, so that when they are hit with the shock, they are not so much affected. We also asked about human capital changes, if they're attending trainings related to climate change, and their confidence in implementing these and getting good results. And then for the transformative aspect, we looked at their participation in local institutions that focus on climate, whether they have a voice in those organizations or institutions. And also we looked at the inter-household agency and norms around climate adaptation. And also when it comes to allocating resources for climate resilience, how it's done within the household. According to the framework for measuring and tracking resilience in agri-food systems, there's an aspect of negative coping that farmers could also adopt negative strategies that in the short term may help them cope, but in the long term it may also affect their welfare. So we also considered that in the construction of our index. So the first result I'm going to present, evidence that's coming from the field. You can see that as expected, we are seeing the adoption of technological innovations is high, even among non-participants. Then we're seeing only 84% of farmers participating in the program adopted technological innovations. And here we are referring to regenerative agriculture practices that were being promoted by Veggies for Planet project, as well as other technologies and all technical innovations. These were just trainings or participation, receiving trainings in agriculture, climate smart agriculture, or participating in demonstrations around that. 63 of the participants reported adopting that. And also for the social, we see that 81% of them at least had access to a social innovation. So STIBs, as described by Lynn, is a combination of these technical, and social innovations. So when we consider those people who are at least taking an innovation from these categories, you find that the overall adoption of STIBs was almost 34%. A third of the people were taking STIBs. When you compare by program participation, you find that those who are participating in our interventions, 51% of them at least adopted a STIB, compared to 25% of non-participants. And then, though we observe that there was a higher adoption of STIBs among participants, there are also some gender gaps in adoption persist. So the second outcome I'm going to showcase here is the results about food security and nutrition. And we used the 12 food groups and also asked farmers about the number of months they experienced food shortages. So to my left, we can see this graph telling us that participation of adopters of STIBs consumed at least one additional food group compared to non-adopters. And in terms of number of months of food shortage, there's also a 1 month less in number of months that they experience food shortages within a calendar year of 12 months. So we estimated because we didn't have control over data collection exercise because of the security situation, and we constructed a new counterfactual, or maybe control group. We used propensity score matching as an identification strategy of the last resort, given the circumstances surrounding this. So we just matched the treated to the controls that we constructed. And when we ran our treatment effects model, and the analysis is still ongoing, we found that participation in the program, in our interventions, increased data diversity by almost 9%, while reducing the number of months of food shortages by 3%. Then moving to empowerment outcomes, we can see that empowerment was higher. This all across all the empowerment scores. That's the empowerment score, the percentage of farmers who are empowered, and also when we narrow down to women and the overall provider score, we see that adopters fared on well in terms of empowerment metrics. As you can see that 66% of women who are adopters, 56% of women who are adopters reported they were empowered, compared to only 35% of women who are non-adopters. And also, when we narrow down to those who are adopting by participation in the program, we found there were no significant differences, except for women, where we see that 49% of women who are STIBs adopters, but never participated in the program, against 62% of women who participated in the program that reported that they were empowered. And sufficiently, we are seeing there's a significant difference in the PRO-I score. In terms of resilience capacities, we see that the relatively lower anticipatory capacity, and farmers tend to take more adaptive measures in anticipation or in response to climate change. And you can see the trend is showing that adoption of STIBs is associated with higher empowerment, not empowerment, higher resilience capacities, moving from anticipatory all the way to transformative capacity on the overall index. And then these are self-reported realized resilience capacity, where we ask farmers to let us know their recovery status after experiencing crop pest and disease. And these results are showing us that we consider recovering from the shock back to your former self, or coming back better as the favorable steps, and being partially recovered or not recovered at all as the adverse recovery status of exposure to climate shocks. And we are seeing that adoption around 23% of people came back from the shock better than they were before among adopters, compared to only 14% among non-adopters of STIBs. And this pattern is being reflected across when we only focus on non-adopters. Their resilience capacities was higher. Their recovery states were higher among those who are participating than those who are not participating. And then for this slide, we are still doing the analysis of possible causal inferences. And on this slide, it's showing us that participating in our intervention was associated with a higher probability of being in the favorable recovery status, and also reduce the probability of farmers being in the adverse states of recovery. In short, it means that the program was associated with a relative increase in probability of farmers being in a good recovery status after being exposed to the shock. So this slide is what are we seeing from these results that I've just showcased. We are seeing that when these bundles are available, and this I'm saying available because we intervened, there's a higher adoption, but we are seeing some gender differences in adoption and also in the other outcomes. And also resilience capacities are improving with a tendency of shifting towards more favorable recovery status after farmers are being exposed to the shocks. And also we see that food security is improving as a result of an increase in data diversity and also the shortening of demand of food shortages. And as I showed also from the descriptive results of an empowerment, we are seeing that adoption of these STIBs was higher, consistently higher among adopters, and which is what we need as we move towards transformation. And then just ending a presentation of this evidence with some cautionary note that we relied on the statistical matching, so our causal inferences may not be devoid of any selection bias. We will not have eliminated all selection bias. And also this emerging evidence, and we are still working this data, and we'll be sharing results as we continue analyzing. And also on a note, we have collected late last year, we collected the qualitative results that we're going to use to further deepen this evidence. Thank you. Back to Nathan.
Thank you, Lutomia. I'm sure there's so many questions for you, Lutomia. And of course, if you don't mind, you could keep sharing the screen for the next bit, for the next 2 slides for Eileen, if you don't mind. And just before we get to the hot Q&A session coming up in a few minutes, please let's keep getting our questions on the Q&A. There's a Q&A button within your Zoom screen, so just get your questions there. I see a number of questions already for Desalene and Lutomia, but before we get back to the Q&A, maybe Eileen, you can come back and give us some reflections on scaling. And I see your slide is already up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nathan, and thanks everyone for joining us. So just reflections on scaling and then research implications. So one of the things that it's coming out very clearly is, we need to move beyond the technology push, and we need to bring in the social, because that really means building agency change, which is what results more in adoption. The other thing also, which is important, is that we need to move from just simple-based technologies or innovations to bundle-based budgeting. And so when we're thinking about funding projects, we have to think of how to have bundled funding. So, these different components, and not just, have a project that focuses on technology or technical innovations, incorporating the rich benefit, empower and transform bundles. Our approach, it's very important. Sorry, guys, I'm in the field, in the vehicle, so I'm trying to put on my seatbelt. That's why you have sort of like the noise in the background. Also, what is important is making sure that we institutionalize these gender transformative socio-technical bundles within the national systems where we work if we want to really create sustainability. Because if we want to do these ourselves, projects are always short-lived, and then you have to leave. But if you actually train the national partners, private sector partners to be able to do this, then there's, sort of like really sustainability happening there. Next slide. So here we are looking at, so that's not my
Sorry,
next
Lutomia.
slide. Lutomia?
Lutomia can
I
move
don't
to
know
the
why
next
it's
one.
not moving to the next slide.
It's okay. Let me
They've
share.
helped.
Okay.
Yeah,
think
so
that
research implications. So yeah, we're actually there. So we really need to move from just, reaching and benefiting. I think a lot of projects, that's what they do. So we get farmers and then we count how many men, how many women. And sometimes is, what are the benefiting to actually making sure that transformation shifts are happening. So change in the gender norms, change in the intra-household dynamics that are happening. I'm really happy that some of our colleagues in the CG are developing guides on how to do, intra-household studies, how to be able to quantify and even understand if change is happening. Also, have a social readiness metric. I think we have these scaling tools. And one of the things we were saying was the scaling tools were very good when, we're looking more at technology, but can we have metrics where we're actually looking at, social readiness of the tools? And also, looking at whether the community is at the point where they are able and willing to engage to be able to try and test some of these technologies, pick actually, not just try and test, but be able to pick the technologies that they want for different reasons that they have and then be able to try these on their farms. Definitely what these gender transformation STIBs is also doing is really strengthening, the collection of data on sets and the disaggregate data, but also, this intersectionality where you're not only looking at these different social elements of maybe sex and age and class, but also how they interact amongst themselves. So I would conclude by saying that the social is not an add-on, like we say gender also is not an add-on, but really it's part of a system. That's how we need to look at it. And also institutionalizing this bundle concept or approach is really, really very key. Thank you so much. I think the other slides, which probably are not going to show, is just thanking our partners, because without them, we would not have been able to do this in Ethiopia. So World Veg, SNV, Lersha platform, but also thanking the CG Trust Fund for being able to provide us with the support continuously. I think now is the fourth getting to the feet here to be able to carry out this important research in Ethiopia, but also, of course, there are other studies that are happening in Kenya, in India, and also within the BRAINS project, which is a bilateral project that I'm part of. We're also doing this in 15 countries in Africa. Thank you. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Eileen. And of course, as I said, we have some questions. So I think I'll invite Lutomia and Desalegn to maybe just have your cameras back on, because there's some hot questions for you in the chat, but I'm sure you may have answers to some, and also you can respond to some if you're not able to get to them by the end of our time. But let me just start. There's a question from Diana Lopez, and Diana is asking, and I think this is a question to Desalegn. If you're able to turn your camera on, could you kindly elaborate and explain a bit more about what exactly it means to co-design and how exactly the co-design process is? So is it co-design only with women farmers, with women and men farmers, or maybe other stakeholders? Desalegn.
Yeah, thank you for this important question. Yeah, the co-design, first of all, means that the innovations are not, developed for farmers, rather than together with them as a participatory and iterative process. So we do the co-designing together with both men and women farmers, together with the relevant stakeholders as well. Jointly identify problems, prioritize needs, test options and refine solutions. So in our approach as a co-designing, we involve also local people like extension agents and local development actors, private sectors, as I have already mentioned in the presentation, like the Green Agro solution, which are the digital solutions. So it was like an interactive session through stakeholder workshop and consultative workshop. We co-designed together with both farmers and other relevant stakeholders. Yeah. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Desalegn, for that. And maybe to you, Lutomia, so how were the treatment and control groups selected? That's also a follow-up question from Diana.
Okay. Thank you, Diana, for the question. I think the treatment mentioned in my presentation that we didn't have access to the controls that were used by our partners at baseline because of the precarious security situation that we were advised by the CG not to go to the field to collect data from those cabinets within the waters. So the control that we used, we just now for just comparison, we just tried to look for control within the same cabinets using a criteria that the local people advise us we can use so that at least we can get people who can mimic those in the treatment. So we didn't have a control that was accessible to the project at the beginning. We collected this data in 2024. In 2024, end of 2024, almost 2 years after commencement of the project. So the characteristics that we used to match were basically guided by the local people, field officers who were also working on the project. So some biases may arise in the way they were sampling, but when we were matching them on the farm sizes, on gender, because of we talked to both men and women within the households, and also we were matching them on the age. And what else comes to my mind? The matching. Those are the three covariates that I think we characteristically used to match the treatment and the control, and those were not pre-treatment, pre-program covariates because we didn't have access to the control at baseline. And also we were matching at individual level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Lutomia, for that. We have two more questions. We have a couple of questions, but if you can respond to some other questions in the Q&A section from Diana. There's just one more on which was the unit that you match. Is it households, or I believe HH is households, villages? Which characteristics did you conduct the PSM? Were these characteristics pre-program? Yeah, maybe in like a minute.
I think in my response, I've provided a response to that just because we matched. There are almost 3 or 4 or 5 characteristics we matched on. The one that come into my mind is the age of the farmer, the sex of the farmer, and also the land sizes that were reported at individual level. Because men within the same households and women within the same households may have different access to land. So we were matching them on their access to land, access to their age, and their farm sizes were available. Yeah, I think those are the 3 that come into my mind. Then I think the units of analysis of matching were individuals.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's skip to the question by Millicent Liani, when Millicent is appreciates saying, thank you, Cosmas. Did you measure empowerment based on all dimensions of the ProWare tool? Are there any wondering if there were variations in empowerment scores beyond the gender binary by considering other social dimensions such as age, educational status, or marital status, etc.
Yeah,
I believe, is that your question? Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you, Millicent, for that question. We used the ProWare to collect. So we collected all dimensions of empowerment measured by ProWare. all the indicators for instrumental agency, collective agency, and also power within. So all the 10 indicators, the core 10 indicators were collected. And at this, the results I've just shown at the empowerment, percentage of people empowered, provider scores, are not the last thing we are presenting. We are analyzing. We are also going at specific domain level, like for each, like for example, for instrumental agency, we'll be looking at also the 5 indicators. Are there 5? I think there are 6 indicators of instrumental agency, collective agency, and also for power whip. So analysis is still ongoing. So at one point, these results will be available, and it will be a pleasure again sharing these results with you once we are done with the analysis.
Awesome.
And we are going to link the results to other indicators, heterogeneity, limited other heterogeneities, age, sex, and then also the same time education, and also linking empowerment and resilience.
Thank you, Lutomia. And maybe just to take you off the hot seat for a moment, maybe for this next question, maybe I direct this to maybe Desalen or Eileen. Alan Bomuhangi. Good afternoon, Alan. Thank you for the exciting work. Based on the results, could you have an idea on what is the minimum bundle of innovations needed to empower women? This is an interesting question. So maybe Desalen or Eileen? Okay, Eileen, please go ahead.
So, yeah, I think I can step in. So like Lutomia said, for Ethiopia, we're still doing analysis of that. But I can say for Kenya, where we've already done completely the analysis of it, you will find that the minimum bundle is usually 3. And the higher sometimes gets you to 10. So if you look at 3 to 10, the range, you can find that you'd have a lot of farmers at 4 and 5. So that's what we found in Kenya, specifically in the Embu County, Nakuru County, as well as the Makueni County. Now in Ethiopia, we are not sure exactly what is there, so I would not want to say what the bundles are, but we're really at the stage of analyzing the data. Lutomia is using this for his PhD, so I think what we're doing is we have 2 papers we're working on, and now we have the qualitative data. We are also going to be checking sort of like, what bundles do we find? In Kenya, interestingly, we'll be doing a study to understand I think we're using the word of cost effectiveness, and Diana said that wasn't the right word to use. But we want to see, for example, if we're asking farmers to go for a bundle of 4, 5, or 6, with a mix of the technology, technical, and the social, what is the cost of this? So like a cost benefit analysis, more or less, what's the cost of it? And how affordable is it compared to what they're already using? Because also, for farmers, they need to see the value of it. And what's coming out clearly is that the socio-economic conditions of the farmers sometimes are also part of the reasons why they go for a particular technology or social or technical innovation compared to another. So those are also additional studies that we're going to be doing this year, but we're going to be focusing on Kenya and not in Ethiopia for that. I think it's just, a result of funding. So really, this is a call. If you're interested in doing something like that, we definitely would love to partner with you to be able to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And of course, we still have a number of questions in the Q&A section. So maybe if you could help me type some responses to them, even as we move on to the next section. But maybe there's a comment that you mentioned in your scaling slide, Eileen, that we need to institutionalize STIBs. I wonder if you're having any or some ideas on how we can institutionalize STIBs. Are you having any early ideas on it?
Yeah. So in Nakuru County, Embu, Makueni County, as well as the two areas in Ethiopia, that's Nigeria and Wodera, we've had multi-stakeholder meetings. So like multi-stakeholder meetings, bringing all the partners that Desalen mentioned, but also bringing external partners that want to take up STIBs. And what we did was go through the results of, what are we getting from the STIBs, looking at still, because I would say this is a blueprint, and it's very context specific. So as you move across crops, the STIBs could change, the bundles could change. But what we also looked at is how do we come up with a roadmap to be able to institutionalize it in country programs, in country projects. And in these, I would say 5 different areas across Kenya and Ethiopia, we've been able to already develop a roadmap for scaling gender-transformative socio-technical innovation bundles in the maize and legume system in Kenya, in the vegetable value chain in Ethiopia. These are documents that are available on the CG space. In Kenya, we've moved a step forward and we're actually contributing to the extension policy that's being developed in Nakuru, where we are building on the roadmap we did with them, but now we are actually getting that into policy. And we know how it works with the government. When it's in policy, and then it's easy to actually get funding for it. It's easy to actually integrate it in other programs. So yeah, that's the way we're going. Thanks very much, Nathan, for that question. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Eileen. And of course, thank you to you and to you, Desalen, and to Lutomia for excellent and wonderful presentations through this webinar. I believe I am seeing some answers to some of the questions. So please do respond to, I see maybe 2 or 3 questions that we have not responded to here. And I'm also seeing some activity on the chat, some appreciation to from some people in the chat. I see you, Rajashri Joshi. I may not be able to read all the comments, but please do respond to some of those questions. Cosmas, Desalen, and Eileen. Again, thank you so much for wonderful presentation. And maybe seeing as our time is far much spent, we only have, I think, 2 minutes. I would love to invite back, I think it's Desalen, to maybe give us some closing remarks, even as we come to the end of the webinar. Desalen.
Thank you, Nathan, for this opportunity. I would like to say thank you, first of all, the organizers and the moderator, Nathan and Vanessa, and the participants as well. It's really an interesting moment for us to share our experience in Ethiopia, especially on the gender transformative STIBs. So we'll continue to share our results because we have left with also the qualitative data and analysis in the future. Hopefully we'll come up with also another webinar to share the full picture of our intervention in Ethiopia as well as in Kenya as well. So for further information, you can contact us. I hope Nathan will share our contacts in the chat so that we can respond if you have any questions and comments and suggestions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Desalen, for those remarks. Yes, Eileen has posted her email on the chat, and I think also Desalen is going to, I'm going to post Desalen's email, and maybe Lutomia, you can also post your email in the chat. Please do get in touch if you have any questions. And as we close, I'm also inviting you to, if you're interested in getting more information on research or more research on gender equality in food systems, please do visit our website, which I have posted on the chat, gender.cgr.org. And if you're interested, you can also join our communities of practice to also link up with other like-minded researchers or actors working on gender in food systems. And with that, thank you so much for joining the webinar and have a nice evening. Goodbye.